Ja, en vanmorgen vroeg sprak ik met oud-opperbevelhebber van de NAVO, generaal Wesley Clark. En ik vroeg hem wat hij vindt van een militaire actie tegen Syrië als vergelding voor de gifgasaanval.
Well, I do believe that the evidence says that Bashar al-Assad's forces used chemical weapons. It's a violation of the 1925 protocol to the Geneva Convention. It's also a violation of the Chemical Weapons Convention. And honestly, it's something that's just inhumane. So it needs to be prohibited. It is prohibited. And so he's violated it. So he needs to be punished. I think the United States is going to do that.
The US has been talking about a strike for weeks now, and Congress will not vote earlier than next week. Doesn't that undermine the effectiveness of a possible strike?
No, actually, it probably increases the effectiveness because, yes, the strike will take out some military assets and it will make it more difficult for Bashar al-Assad probably to use chemical weapons in the future. But the most important thing about the strike is that by using force, the United States is leveraging world opinion so that we're trying to bring the whole world together to condemn this act. He's crossed a red line against humanity. And so had the United States simply immediately struck, then people would say, oh, well, the United States has done it, it's over. This way, governments in every country, including the Netherlands, have to ask themselves, how awful is this that he would use poison gas against his own civilian population? Can this be permitted in the 21st century? And if we think it's really inhumane and shouldn't be permitted, shouldn't every government join with the United States in condemning Bashar al-Assad's use of poison weapons?
But Assad knows what to expect.
Well, he doesn't really know what to expect.
Don't you think so?
Hundreds of possible targets. No, there's hundreds of possible targets. The United States will pick and choose its targets. Some of those decisions won't be made to the last minute. Maybe he'll try to move stuff under a bridge on a highway. We'll see it. Maybe he'll bring munitions out of bunkers and load them into warehouses with groceries. We'll watch it. Maybe he'll take his headquarters and try to move it into a school building. We'll know where it's going.
What should Obama do if he is not backed by Congress?
Well, he will be backed by Congress. He's already got the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on his side. But even if Congress doesn't back him, the president's going to strike anyway.
You think he should proceed with military strikes then?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Also, if there's no support of major allies?
Look, we can't be responsible for the governments of the British or Dutch or Belgians or whoever. You have to undertake your own processes. But if you remember the horrors, and some people in Holland still remember the horrors of World War I and the use of poison gas, if you remember what it was like to be occupied in World War II and the horror of Amsterdam and that awful period of starvation near the end of World War II, that's what war's like. We should stop war. And the best way to stop war is for nations to unite and demand that it be stopped. And it needs to be stopped by uniting on this issue. These poison chemicals are too inhumane ever to be used, and especially against civilians.
General Clark, you led the NATO forces in the Kosovo campaign in 1999. How comparable is the Kosovo campaign to the possible military strike against Syria?
I don't think it's comparable. The real comparison is maybe the strike done by the United States against Saddam Hussein in 1993 when there was a plot to kill President Bush, or maybe the strike against Saddam Hussein in 1998 when we attacked for 4 days to take out Saddam's chemical, biological, nuclear residual storage capacities. We did that in 4 days in December of 1998, and it was over. That's more or less what this is going to be, assuming Bashar al-Assad doesn't do something crazy in retaliation. If he does, then he'll have dug his own grave, so to speak. But I don't think he's going to do that. I think he's going to tolerate this. And I think that all of the nations of NATO should be joining with the United States, not because they're NATO, but because Europe has suffered chemical warfare in the past. Europeans know how inhumane it is. And Europeans should be among the leaders in saying this should not ever be used again.
What kind of military campaign do you believe is the most effective?
I'd say 5 to 6 days of strikes, followed by a period of assessment, perhaps followed by more strikes if necessary. Several hundred targets, perhaps.
But once a military campaign is underway, can the scope or the duration of the military strike change?
Sure.
But that's what people fear.
It depends on what Bashar al-Assad does.
But that's what people fear, that it
that's
will
up to
take
Bashar
longer.
al-Assad. Well, it won't take longer unless Bashar al-Assad wants it to take longer. And if he wants it to take longer and resists and activates Hezbollah and tries to cause trouble in the region, he'll get plenty of trouble. And he won't like it.
How effective, General Clark, would a punishment strike be without boots on the ground?
I think it can be very effective. After all, we succeeded in eliminating Slobodan Milosevic's grip on Kosovo through a 78-day air campaign with no boots on the ground. So I think we can certainly punish Bashar al-Assad without having any boots on the ground. We did this against Saddam Hussein in 1998.
But General Clark, if Congress votes for military intervention against Syria, is it wise for the US to act without support of major allies?
Yeah, I think it's wise.
Why?
But you know, every question you've started is with the word but. I want you to use the word and, because I want the Dutch people to understand that this is for them as well as for the people of Syria and for people in Africa and people elsewhere in the Middle East and for people in China and Russia and the United States. Because chemical weapons simply shouldn't be used. Nations should get rid of them. And Bashar al-Assad should get rid of his, but he certainly shouldn't be using them.
Okay, thank you very much, General Clark, for being in our program. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Best to you in Netherlands.
Ja, dat was